Yeah, so this week at the top, I just make sure your favorite boulder is nearby, ready for punching, because I understand everyone's favorite Resident Evil character, the best protagonist in their eyes, is precious to them. It's someone they would defend with their life. But today, there can only be four. Somebody's getting cut. As is the case with any deliberation for the goats of a given topic, any Mount Rushmore conversation, what you weigh, what you value in terms of making an impact and earning that spot amongst the definitive four, it varies person to person. But for today's selections, we are taking the following criteria into account. First up, icon status. What's their design like? Did they leave an impact, and in what way? Was it with one-liners? Was it with action set pieces? Was it with just their drip? Because Capcom is, if they're good at anything, it's making incredible looking characters. Next up is value. What do these characters bring to the game they're starring in? And better yet, what do they do to Resident Evil as a series? Whether that is increase its stock, increase its style, or bring new gameplay to the forefront through their role in the lead. And the last thing that I am personally weighing in these selections is their character arc. I know some people don't play Resident Evil for the story, but I cannot imagine being one of those people. I love seeing the characters of this series grow and change from game to game. If they make one appearance or several, I want to make sure that we are highlighting the layers and nuances of what Resident Evil offers. Shouldn't all be the same type of person. So, to kick things off, who earns the first S rank? I'll note that this is not in an actual order, this is not tiered, it made sense, because the first is the S-Man himself, Leon S. Kennedy. I want to lead with Leon because it's expected. He is easily the fan favorite character. Just look at him. He's got two iconic fits down pat. He's got the survival rookie cop look, and he's got the jacket that people pay thousands of dollars to get their hands on. While Leon first appeared in Resident Evil 2 and came back with the remake of Resident Evil 2, bringing the series back in a major way, he also starred in Resident Evil 4, what many consider one of the greatest video games ever made. And listen, I understand for some people it is very boring to just go along with history-making decisions, legacies that people who are much, much older than us decided should just be the way things are when we're talking about greatest games ever made. But Resident Evil 4 is that game. I can guarantee you, as somebody who did not grow up with it, Resident Evil 4, it's that good, it is that game, because it defined the language of how we play third-person shooters over 2 decades ago, and Leon is a core component of how that game works. Leon's role in that is that he was able to take his experiences from a more serious, scary survival horror experience with that PS1 RE2 and level himself up, going from rookie cop to bodyguard for the president's daughter in this game, and of course, as time went on, leveling up the Secret Service hierarchy, and now in Resident Evil 9 he is returning for potentially one last adventure, and it's clear to see his arc, it's clear to see his impact. It is absolutely understandable why he's a fan favorite, and it is no question Leon S. Kennedy deserves a spot in the definitive four. And while I adore Leon, he's one of my favorite characters in gaming, and he's the clear fan favorite of the Resident Evil protagonists. For the next selection, making it into the definitive four, I want to give some love to my favorite Resident Evil protagonist, one of the OGs, Jill Valentine. Now, obviously, there would be no Resident Evil as we know it today without that first game, and Jill Valentine is a core player in that game. Yes, you have the Chris Redfield arc, but something about Jill's design is just so much more appealing. She's got the Stars beret, she's wearing blue in this old, decaying, scary, like old money mansion that is full of death and science experiments, and she is just doing her best alongside the superior companion in RE1, Barry Burton. Without Barry, there's no Jill Sandwich, and without Jill Sandwich, what are we even doing here anymore? The series should have ended if we didn't have that. Now, the legacy of the first game is one thing. Again, Chris Redfield was co-starring in that original adventure, but it is the steps that Jill's character took after that first game that really define her role for this series, because before RE4, before the big action movie, Jill kind of fulfilled a Die Hard-esque fantasy in that city zombie outbreak storyline. Jill went from iconic to having a massive aura bump in the RE3, RE Nemesis storyline. She is just a fantastic action hero. She is always back against the wall, impossible odds, and finds a way to get through it somehow and see that sunrise and move on to the next adventure. With some fantastic one-liners in there, especially her characterization in the remake of Resident Evil 3. Peak. All of this peak. But speaking of One More Adventures, Capcom, where is Jill's next game? We have been waiting. There was that tease at the end of the RE3 remake. If Leon gets a nice send-off, an old man Leon, we need like an old woman Jill badass send-off for her. After at least one more full-blown peak prime Jill Valentine adventure, please and thank you. Moving on to the third selection of the Definitive 4. Hear me out on this one. I think it's very important that we have a serious conversation right now. We have Leon representing the modern action game that RE4 introduced to the world. Big deal for the series, big deal for gaming as a whole. We have Jill Valentine representing the roots. Again, kind of similar to Leon. Important for the series, important for gaming. So for me, it is absolutely no question at all. The next character we need to include in the Definitive 4 Resident Evil protagonists is none other than the protagonist who starred in the game that saved the series, and the game that really saved Capcom. Ethan Winters. Now hear me out, I know some people don't like Ethan, but I really gotta say, I feel he is a bit overhated. He fills the role he's supposed to beautifully. After the absolute absurdity that is Resident Evil 6, a game I loved despite itself, Capcom needed a reset, and there was absolutely no way we could take the dinosaur fighting Leon and Chris and Jake Wesker out of the fallout of that game and do something scary with them again. People were hungry to see Resident Evil be scary again. And to make bioweapons scary, we kinda just needed a normal guy. Resident Evil 7 put the Resident Evil back in Resident Evil. It is limited to mostly a house for the majority of that game, at least the best part of that game. And to make an old, decaying house, to make a stalking, undead family feel threatening, you needed somebody who you could put yourself in their shoes. Ethan's bumbling through some of the terrifying, horrifying situations he has to endure in that game really adds to the tone and the fear that players have in that game. Sure, the perspective does a bit of that heavy lifting on its own, but I think Ethan needed to be relatable. Now, did Ethan need 2 games? Some would say no. I would absolutely argue yes, because while Ethan's first game, RE7, brought the series back, made it feel scary again, I think Ethan in Village, despite making some a little more out there choices with his storyline, he really did help elevate the stock of Chris Redfield, a character who I feel was in the trenches before Village. Because think about it, you spend so much of Resident Evil Village terrified for your life, with unknown horrors following you through the pits of hell, basically, just to save your kid. And then, when you get Hound Wolf Squad in the mix, when you get behind the sticks as Chris Redfield, again, you feel like a god. You don't get that without Ethan being Ethan. He's an important protagonist for the series being what it is today. He was a necessary stepping stone to get some of those beloved veterans back to their pre-RE6 glory, and I appreciate the work he did. God rest your soul, Ethan Winters. It was a pleasure to know you. But my friends, it is time. We have reached the final selection. There's only room for one more in this Definitive 4 lineup, in this Mount Rushmore of Resident Evil protagonists. Who does it belong to? Because there are plenty of characters who could easily step into this role, but there is one name whose absence would be a crime on this list. Redfield. Claire Redfield. I'm sorry, Chris fans, but Claire is such a stronger character than him. I don't know how you argue against this choice. Honestly, I feel Claire is the underdog of the Resident Evil protagonists. She has had some wonderful, exciting adventures, and her storyline, I feel, carries the whole outbreak scenario of Resident Evil 2. Something about being just a civilian who is interested, invested with personal family stakes in trying to get out of the city alive, rather than just a cop whose first day was bad. And at least in Resident Evil 2 Remake, you have Claire more integrally involved with the Birkin family, because she is escorting Sherry throughout this apocalypse and trying to get out of Raccoon City alive for her sake, because she knows her brother is cool. So once that stress is gone, she's like, all right, I gotta save this kid, because we're in a zombie apocalypse. Beyond that, Code Veronica is a great game, and before Resident Evil 7 Biohazard came in and Ethan helped bring the series back, many people viewed Revelations 2, starring Claire and, funny enough, Barry Burton, as the best thing the series produced after years of horror. Claire Redfield may not have as many appearances as her brother Chris Redfield. She may have not been there from the jump, but she came in that second outing with a badass red denim jacket, and she is just a fantastic addition to the Resident Evil roster, and absolutely deserves one more ride, or several, in my opinion, leading the series. Fingers crossed we see her in 9. If Leon's gonna be back in Raccoon City, like, it would make sense. She's surely busy, but we can get a small cameo in there, right? But those are just my picks for the 4 definitive Resident Evil protagonists. Be sure to let us know what you think of those, what yours would be, and most importantly, down below, I want to know, who do you hope to see return for an old man Leon-style one last ride adventure? What missing Resident Evil protagonist deserves a big comeback the way Leon has gotten with the remakes, and now potentially his last chapter, RE9. But that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. For more on Resident Evil 9 and for more definitive 4 rankings in the future, stay tuned right here and over on GameRant.com.